So I'm not sure what happened here. I glued the top onto the sides of the guitar, and it looks like the top cracked. So in this episode, what we're going to work on is the headstocks and gluing the tops and the backs onto the guitars. This is really self-explanatory, so there's really not that much to show here. You're going to prep the top, you're going to sand it down, you're going to make sure that you're cutting out the notches for the bracings to fit in, and then you're basically just going to glue it down. Now, I'm not going to show both the acoustic and the ukulele. I'm going to kind of sort of just do a montage. And so that way you can kind of sort of just get a gist for how this basically works. But one of the ways that I was trying to keep the tops and the backs glued on was by using this string method. And it worked really well for the ukulele, but as you'll see, it didn't work all that well when it came to the acoustic guitar. So I'm not sure what happened here. I glued the top onto the sides of the guitar, and it looks like the top cracked in two places, which I didn't even see. So it's not major. It looks like it's easy to fix, but I don't know if it's because it's freezing in here, and maybe that just wasn't a good time to glue it up, or maybe I just put too much pressure when I was clamping. I'm not exactly sure, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So as you can see, right along here, the top separated and cracked a bit. And I think there's a little bit of it here too. Yeah, you can see it. So there too. So it cracked at two places. I might have just put too much pressure on the top at that point. Probably did. Nothing that can't be fixed, but really annoying. It turns out that acoustics are just as beautiful on the inside as they are on the outside. It's almost a shame to cover these up. A friend of mine bought me this branding iron, and it's one of the coolest things I've ever been given. So anyway, with that gratuitous branding shot out of the way, basically gluing this back is no different than gluing the top. This time I wanted to play it safe, and I decided that I was just going to use tape and, well, hope that was enough. And you know the tape was more than sufficient. I think when you have two well-fitting pieces together, it really doesn't take as much clamping pressure as we think it does in order to make those two pieces. I'm sure I'm not the only person who goes crazy with clamping pressure, but it really doesn't take as much pressure as we think it does. So with that out of the way, we get to move towards the headstock and the neck. And the only thing I really want to point out about working on the fretboard is you'll notice that I'm going to put the frets in before I glue it onto the neck. You normally never do this, but I don't have any way of putting the top frets, the ones that lay over the body, without somehow crushing the body itself. And so the way I figured it was I may as well just put in the frets the whole way across and then glue it onto the actual neck blank. And you know, it actually worked really well, and I enjoyed doing it this way. It was actually more comfortable than doing it the other way around. So if anybody out there has had any negative experiences doing it that way, let me know. So I had to make faceplates for both of the headstocks, and for the acoustic guitar, I used the Paduk and Wenge, And for the faceplate of the ukulele, I used Paduk and Sapelli. For the ukulele, it turned out to be a very subtle and delicate effect, and I think it's very appropriate for it. For the acoustic headstock, it's a little more complicated. One of the things I've found about working on this headstock is you kind of sort of have to very much go in a specific order, or you mess yourself up pretty well. So one of the first steps you have to do is kind of sort of drill the tuning holes. And the reason for that is if you wait until after you've opened up the center, then you'll get a massive amount of tear out. So the only way to avoid that is to drill those holes first. It would be nice to not to do that last, because then you can kind of sort of align the tuners a little bit better with where you want the strings to line up. But unfortunately, you're better off just doing it first. And then here, just kind of sort of hollowing out the center in order to open up that middle section. So then you have to clean out the center of this, the arms of the headstock. And you have to be really careful here, because at this point you've erased or you've cut out most of your pencil lines. And so you're going to have to rely a lot on your eye and your sense of symmetry to make sure that you don't go too far. As you'll see, there are going to be bevels that are going to be carved in here as well. And I have to keep that in mind while I'm doing it. Here I'm pulling out the Dremel to get into those tight spaces. I don't use the Dremel enough. I think it's one of the most underused but useful tools in the shop, but I never think of grabbing it. For this particular instance, it actually works perfectly. I ended up really liking the way these bevels look, but I wonder if it's really worth all the work. But it's one of those subtle little details that really make something pop, right? It's the little things. I think one of the reasons why I enjoy making these type of headstocks so much is because they are a convoluted mess, and they do involve a lot of steps along the way. It might be one of those things that you can sort of really get into doing, and you might get lost in the fact that maybe the result isn't worth it, but I don't know, I think they're cool. I think I also like the pressure of making these necks. It forces me to focus. At this point, if you screw any one of these stuffs up, you're just going to have to make the whole entire neck from scratch again. So we're going to end the video here since the headstocks are done. I was going to go all the way through to attaching these necks onto the bodies, but a friend of mine wants me to do like a more in-depth sort of thing about it, so I think the next episode is just going to be attaching the necks to the body itself and then carving them out. A few things about this headstock. This is actually, for all the trouble that it takes to make this is not the headstock that I have in mind for my acoustics. I did want to experiment with it though and see how this affects the tonality. There's two different ideas as to how this might affect the tone. Since there's less mass on the headstock, you might actually end up getting more of the string vibration staying in the body, which means more volume, more sustain. Or it could be just the opposite, since now there's less wood here, there's less mass, that's going to actually lower the sustain and the volume of the guitar. So I'm not really sure which one is true. Maybe neither one of them is true. I get a feeling it's going to be like most things guitar-wise, where a lot's going to depend on your execution more than anything else. There's probably ways of making this sound one way, and if you do it a different way, it'll probably contribute a different... Anyway, I think it's actually a really, really beautiful headstock. It's obviously not final sanded yet. I gotta get my face out of here. There you go. Come on, focus. There you go. It's really nice. I mean, again, it's got to be cleaned up, but I think it looks pretty cool. I screwed up in drilling the side holes. It's fine. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Like I said, I'm more curious as to how this is going to affect the tone than, you know, it like being perfect. But yeah, I did screw that up a little bit. So anyway, yeah, stay tuned. In the next episode, we're going to attach these things to the body. We'll probably just focus on that and carving the necks. And I think after that, we're down to just the cosmetics, right? Like doing some binding, doing some finishing. And I'm at that point where I'm always kind of sort of a little bit sad with a build. And you start looking back and thinking, I should have spent more time on X, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. Anyway, kind of sort of happy with the way they're coming out for now. Anyway, peace out.